Hi, David!
He told me that I will become a monster in 2 days.
The supernatural, the power of darkness, it's all true. Please believe me.
Believe what? That tomorrow night, beneath the full moon, I'll sprout hair and fangs and eat people?
You'd be surprised what horrors a man is capable of.
Are you all right now?
I don't know. I'll let you know the next full moon. I'm a werewolf.
You're gonna change. You'll kill people. You'll become...
I know. A monster.
David, don't lose control!
Control? What control?
David, I can help you.
No, I'm not safe to be with. You gotta stay away from me. Run!
Hello, I'm Thomas Carruthers.
And I'm David Whiting.
And today is another Halloween guest choice. Now, I decided for Halloween, everybody gets their own choice. And then I immediately was like, oh no, I'm going to have to do 8 movies I don't actually like. And then suddenly, I can always depend on Jay. Jay picked The Shining. I was like, oh, good. And then out of the blue, you chose one of my absolute favorite horror movies, An American Werewolf in London. And I said, I didn't know you love this movie, and you don't. You'd never seen it. You are our American in London.
Indeed, I am. Yes. So I felt like it really spoke to me on a lot of levels,
And
my predecessors torn apart by wolves.
And of course, you are
David.
called David. Yes,
Just like the werewolf.
just like David Norton.
Just like David Norton.
And
Poor David.
Poor David. But the minute he gets
This goes to
something
show
good
you-
going.
You can't trust people in the north. Clearly, they're going to let you
Yes.
wander out onto the moors and be torn apart by a monster.
We watched this, and I think you now work in a London pub, so it's not necessarily
It's not quite the Slaughtered Lamb, but it's got a
but-
similar aesthetic.
it's regulars based, and the mere fact, I think maybe if you watch this like a couple of months into your life in London, you may have gone to me, Tom, is that really what it's like up north? However, now I think you
100%.
it's an oft quoted film around my neck of the woods. So you haven't seen Kes, I presume, but Kes is another big Yorkshire movie. That's about a little boy who has a bird, and it's delightful. And Brian Glover is in that. Brian Glover's the one who tells the Alamo joke and is bald, and that's enough. And that's that guy. And
Quintessential token Yorkshire person.
no, born and bred. Could say it to raise the dead. But so what did you know of An American Werewolf in London before you chose it as your Halloween film?
I really only knew it because of sort of the famous practical horror effects that are in it. They mention it a couple times at the horror makeup show there in Universal Orlando, and they have a sort of a recreation of the animatronic that does the stretching of the face as his snout sort of grows in, and kind of explained how they did all of that. So I really only knew it because of sort of the iconic practical effects that it's got.
And you did the Halloween Horror Nights, mates.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I figured that was, I already was aware of it before the Halloween horror, but it was an absolutely terrifying haunted house, and they did a very, very
So
good
you
job.
kind of I've seen watch throughs because I'm a fucking. I believe the technical term is whore for An American Werewolf in London. I just love it to the brim.
It was a terrifying haunted house. The very first scare actor was just a guy with a terrible English accent and a double barrel shotgun that he was shooting.
It's one hell of a way to open it. So it was like this weird thing. So this is also a broadcast first, David. This is the first ever film where I have watched the film in the time when I watch it for the show with the guest.
They were very torn up about that.
I was you could clearly see how annoyed I was.
How frustrated you were with everything I said.
Well, no. That was perfectly fine. We have a new category, in fact, for this episode called Save It for the Pod, where every single time David said something, I wrote it down so that we could discuss it here. And because this has happened a couple of times now with like when we do the emergency podcasts. And it's happened with with Rian, and it happened with Will, of us both watching Bond, and then usually Will will just message me straight away and we'll talk about it. And I said, no, save it for the pod. We cannot talk about it before Sunday. And same thing with Spider-Man. We had a whole evening drinks party Zoom call with friends. And they kept saying, can we talk about it? I was like, no, we're not allowed. We're not going to talk. I'm really fun. And, but it makes for a great conversation. And no, but I was very silent. I just wrote down all of your questions.
The whole movie, just taking my comments down.
Because I didn't want to spark any debate.
I was fully convinced I was probably not going to be asked to the podcast just because you realized how shit I am at timetabling. Yeah, Tom's officially given up on me fitting into his schedule.
So I was going to say, the 2 times that you've ended up on the show, well, no, Flushed Away, you were on Flushed Away.
Flushed Away, I was actually, that was a scheduled appearance.
You were on Zodiac absolute last minute because you're Rian's partner, and so you were obviously Rian doesn't have time for a 3-hour film, and so I watched it with you, and then he was like, oh, there's no point start watching, like I'm not going to force you to sit and play Club Penguin whilst your partner records a podcast, and so why not hop on. And then 45 years, because for the longest time, I've wanted to force people to watch 45 years. It's on Netflix, by the way. I don't know what you two are doing tonight, but you could watch that.
Watching that movie. The harrowing tale of the death of love.
Glimpse behind the curtain. Tonight at midnight, I will become 2022, and there is the distinct possibility that I will watch 45 years tonight after this podcast. And the first thing I will see as a 22-year-old is Charlotte Rampling crying. This is a distinct possibility.
It's an excellent start for your birthday.
It was just a picture. But American Werewolf in London. So you had this weird sort of thing where every new set piece, like the minute the tube sequence started, and you were like, oh, this was in the maze. This was good in the maze. So did that kind of, or is this been like years and you've completely forgotten it? Or were there parts that you remembered and the like?
As I remember the haunted house anyways, you sort of start out outside of the slaughtered lamb. You see like the signpost swinging, and it's clear that something has like, they didn't really follow the plot of the movie, obviously. They had a few set pieces, most of them being ravaged by the wolf, essentially, as you're going through. So, you're coming into the slaughtered lamb. There's a guy with a terrible English accent outside shooting shotgun shells. It's evident that something has attacked the bub. And then, as you come around a corner, that was their first big scary animatronic, which was the wolf sort of tearing into somebody through a hole in the wall, essentially. So it was, there's a few big set pieces. They had the hospital, the streets of London, a few different spooky spots.
It was weird watching it with you for the first time again, because this is now one of my top 5 horror movies, one of my favorite films of all time. It's definitely in there, and I just love so much of the tone, the performances, the writing. I love John Landis as a director.
It really holds up in a way that I think probably a lot of horror movies don't from that time period necessarily.
I'm going to go against you. I think a lot of those movies do hold up for one particular reason.
Which is?
Practical effects.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, everybody loves good practical effects, I kind of think CGI is probably one of the worst things we've got going for us right now. I mean, worst and best. It's got.
No, it has incredible techniques and the like, but there is an unageable quality with things being there in the real world, whereas CGI dates itself every 5 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
the actors so much more to work off of, and there's something visceral about just seeing something that looks real, I guess, because it is real, essentially.
The big 1-to-1 is that Rick Baker, obviously makeup extraordinaire, who took on this after being, friends with John Landis, and they made Schlock together, this sort of B movie, and this was a script that Landis had since I think he was 19 or something in 1968, and he barely changed. He said, my scripts over the years have changed insurmountably, but this one was almost word for word. It's just one of those things where, like, your first great idea and you just get it down, and it's one of those things I often find, well, I don't know, I've never had any of my scripts made, but when I look at the scripts that I've written, it's those first couple that barely change, and it's that it. Yeah, you'd think it'd be the other way around.
The self-editing process, over time. Yeah,
and there's little notes here, and there's little words here, and there's and there's Ruby saying, "Why doesn't this pass the Bechdel test?" And there's those little changes, but apart from that, it's minors. It's minors, and I think it fundamentally is that thing of you've never written a script before. And so you have all the ideas in the world. And sometimes that can pay off, and sometimes that doesn't pay off. But
I haven't ever managed to finish a script, and I feel like I have very few ideas.
Oh, there you go. But I've completely gone off, but I'm back to my first point. It was weird watching you watch it for the first time again, because, well, I mean, we'll talk about it, but you thought the ending was just far too rushed, and this is a big thing. I don't know if a couple of days have mellowed you on that opinion.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that the ending was bad. It was abrupt. I think we're used. Maybe it's just something we've gotten kind of used to it, but I like the plot was resolved. I guess the dramatic question of, will he die? Won't he die? Will he be saved?
Yeah.
What is going to happen? Yes, that was resolved. So, functionally, yeah, the story's over. The plot's been figured out. We don't have to do any sort of like tying up loose ends. But I mean, like, I feel like a modern movie probably would have shown us some of the aftermath of like the Doctor, and kind of like how London moved forward from a werewolf attack.
But this is the thing, isn't it? In reality, that scene would be, oh, David, and then it fades to Jenny Agutter, veil over. I mean, she'd look marvelous, undoubtedly, in a chic black dress and a coat, and she's coming with a single rose, and she drops it on David's grave. And maybe David and Griffin Dunn are watching. Oh no, well, they wouldn't be watching, would they? Because they'd have passed on. That's the whole point.
We'd have one final scene where they would beat us over the head with the theme, essentially, and then. I
think for me, you have got to be fucking me in the arsehole.
Shall we pause?
Oh, I will pause. This isn't a Rain Man podcast. Well, unfortunately, Raymond, Charlie Babbitt had to go back to what's it called? Leaving, is it Walbrook? Where's the institute in Rain Man that Charlie's at?
Oh yeah, let me just spit that out.
But the only reason I know is because the Hans Zimmer soundtrack, that the best piece on that is called Leaving Walbrook. And it's like, so now I know. I'm an excellent driver. He's been sent back. Poor Tom Cruise. Do you want to stay with Charlie? Yeah. Do you want to go back to Walbrook? Yeah. Poor Tom Cruise. But this isn't a Rain Man podcast. This is an American Werewolf in London podcast. I'm going to do I think the big thing is a lot of these like 70s horror movies and 80s horror movies have these abrupt endings. And every single time it feels like they've run out of money. I love Theatre of Blood. It's one of my favorite horror movies. It's Vincent Price. It's camp. It's fabulous. It's marvelous. But that ends with this huge explosion, and then a dummy falls, and then it's just like immediately the credits start rolling. Whereas this, the way it's edited and the way it drops that Blue Moon song feels entirely intentionally abrupt. And so for me, that's why it works.
It felt like a choice. Like it wasn't something where like, oh, they just didn't know how to write an ending. Like, no, they had wrapped everything up nicely. They gave us like a good sort of like, this is what happened. Climax of the movie. Here's her reaction. And you can build the rest. I think, you build the rest for yourself, essentially. What's next?
And also, I think, this is your first time ever watching it. I'll be honest, David, when I was like, I don't know, fucking like 14 or something, and I watched this for the first time, my two biggest things were, that ending was too quick. Why was that? What was that ending? And also, I thought the Nazi demons were so stupid. I thought, why are they here? Why are they here?
I mean, yeah, I got that. I mean, yeah, it was, the Nazi demons felt tonally different, but not out of the, not out of this sort of world. I mean, there were a lot of like sort of fantastical elements with like the undead and just it's kind of a fantastical out there sort of movie where random shit happens. I thought it was a really good way to show like his anxiety and sort of like inner demons coming out. Rooted
in it's all of these absurdist things rooted in realism and sarcastic British dark humor. I mean, prime example is just the first time we see Jack. Paul, sorry, 1 minute. We're back.
And we're back.
Where was I? I was talking about
something about
Nazis. Yeah. Oh, dark humor. No. The first time we see Jack, and it's just, there's no him coming out of the shadows. There's no nothing. It's just
fully a dead person right there.
Just cut back. Can I have a slice of toast? You're like, sorry, what? And it does, and by that point we've had the the running through the woods, the POV shots so we're in the world now that he's having these werewolf based fantasies and nightmares, but still nothing preps you for just reverse shot, Griffin Dunn stood there half dead.
It was one thing that I was thinking while I was watching. It was similar to Jaws in a way, in that they knew their ability, I think, to show the entire creature on a rampage was limited.
Yes.
So instead of focusing on the monster, they kind of upped the horror by showing the result of the monster, such by showing what happens after it's done with somebody, and really making those practical effects so visceral and kind of gut wrenching to look at.
I watched everything and all the interviews, and Landis now says he regrets. He says the monster's in it a little bit too much, but he just loved that big wolf dog. I disagree. I think he's in it just enough, and I think every time we see him, he just looks incredible, and we see him just enough, even whether it's a close-up, whether it's the bit where he jumps through the door and we get a good look at him. That's probably the best look of the whole dog we get in a relatively medium-sized shot. And
the thing is genuinely scary looking. Like it's not cartoonish or wooden. It looks like something that's really genuinely terrifying.
Landis's note for Rick Baker was, because Rick Baker loved the Wolfman. He loved those original things, and that has led him later in life for the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro. He was like, I have to do this. So he wanted to do a standing on two legs classic Wolfman werewolf. Landis didn't want that. He wanted this Hound of Baskervilles, demon dog from hell was the way he described it to Rick Baker. And it's just a really interesting, different kind of werewolf that we hadn't really seen, because Baskervilles it is these evil dogs, or whichever way you want to look at that.
Looking thing. Yeah.
And it's just deeply unsettling and very scary.
The eyes on that, the eyes on the thing really are what draw me. And I think when just looking at pictures of it online is just how kind of like savage and cold, or not necessarily cold, but just really looks like something that wants to rip you apart, you know?
And it does rip people apart. I mean, this is a gory, graphic movie, and every single time the violence is quick. Every single time they do it 3 times in a row, and every single time it's still effective, which gets me. They do the exact same gag of, did you hear something? With the 2 snobby people. Did you hear something? And then it just comes like exactly out the frame. It's like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. I always forget which pillar he's behind when he kills Scatman Carruthers. I always forget which corner the wolf jumps out of, because it's always so abrupt and snappy. And then with the homeless people, Mother of God, smash cut to the tube. Just
the howl on the moors, and the way that we see, you know, it just kind of even when you're in the relative safety of like the pub in the town in the north, and you hear that howl outside, and the look on everyone's face of what that means
over and over again. You can't leave them out there. We've got to go get him.
We've got to go get them. You have to do something. You can't just do this.
Leave them. Nobody asked him here.
Good old English hospitality.
Yes. This is why you haven't been up north yet, David. It's not because of a pandemic. It's because
we don't want to feed me to the werewolves yet.
Oh no, I do. I just want an opportune time.
The only thing I would say is that it is a problem that seems to get solved awfully easily, I guess.
What, we're shooting him?
Yeah, at least up north while they're there. The only thing that made the element of them coming out to rescue him and being able, like, this is more just me nitpicking because I don't think it necessarily doesn't work, but it was an awfully easy problem to fix, where you wonder, like, well, why haven't they done this earlier? I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, of them just.
But it's not really, you know, a major issue, because it wasn't. I wouldn't call it really. I mean, there's 1,001 reasons. It was something that occurred while I was watching. Why didn't they just do this before?
I think it's a fear. I think as they sort of show us, it's a fear, and until necessity calls for it, that they have to go onto the moors. I just think they're terribly, terribly scared, because they know the myths, and I think it's a lot scarier to be a werewolf than it is to die a werewolf, as we know. So what's the story of that guy, of the first Yorkshire guy?
I love the shot. I think that was a fantastic shot of him there, just an old man with a shotgun hole in the side of his rib cage, and you're just like, and it's perfectly suggestive. And I love the mirror at the end with David after he's killed. You know, we get the shot of the wolf lunging to attack, and then a shot of David dead on the ground, naked and covered.
And I love that they're naked. I know this is a weird thing to love, old naked Yorkshire old men, but I just love that he's completely naked. You can see the steam rising off him because it's so cold out there, and it's just such a stark, haunting image that sticks with you in the back of your mind. Whether it's because the first time you ever watch this, you go, oh, because it's called An American Werewolf in London, but it's such a weird image that you hold on to it, but you don't exactly know what you've just seen, And then obviously it pays off at the end again. So this was budgeted at 5.8 million, eventually made $62 million. Quite a big success. It was the first film ever to be nominated and the first film ever to win the Academy Award for Best Makeup, because this followed, this was 1981, and in 1980, a little movie came out, David, I don't know if you've seen it, The Elephant Man. And
I haven't, but I know it has supposed to have really amazing effects.
It's absolutely astounding makeup work, and there was just no way to award it, and so this sort of called for an outcry in the Oscars community and the Academy Awards body, and hence it was created. It's like the animated movie. People always think that animated movie was an Oscar. Shrek was the first best animated movie winner. People forget this. Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King didn't win anything.
They almost won Best Picture. I remember.
Yeah,
it was Beauty and the Beast was the first animated movie nominated for Best Picture,
and it lost to Silence of the Lambs.
That's fair.
Very fair. Weirdly, two of my favorite films, Beauty and the Beast and Silence of the Lambs. Two movies I know.
Like the duality of man.
The duality of Thomas Carruthers. I don't know if every man has the duality of Beauty and knowing all of Be Our Guest and knowing all of Buffalo Bill's Goodbye Horses dance. But and you kind of get, this is a weird point, the duality of me as a film fan in this film. It's the Yorkshire humour, it's the dark British humour, it's the dry wit, it's the brutal violence, it's the horror, it's the thriller, it's the sexy flirtations and the wonderful romance of Jenny Agutter, it's the rom-com, it's all of these things, and it's an hour 40, and somehow it all works.
And it gets it all in there, man.
And as you said, I mean, it just can't be underestimated. Every single effect and the transformation especially still looks incredible. It just cannot be underestimated.
I can't imagine how fucking hot that goddamn bodysuit is. From the shot where he's not quite fully a wolf man yet, but he has like an altered face and he is covered in this scraggly black kind of fur. But he hasn't quite fully shifted. I can't imagine how fucking long it took to get him into that.
John Landis, when he was interviewing Griffin Dunne, said, I have one question for you for me, and you have to ask this seriously. Are you claustrophobic? And Griffin Dunne said, no. And he wasn't, but of course he would have lied to get the role. And he was like, I don't understand. And then for years, for months, he was like, why did he ask me about the claustrophobia? And then he did the first latex body cast. And he was like, oh, now I get it.
That's fucking why.
Yeah. How do you think, because we're both actors, how do you think you'd hold up under heavy latex? Because obviously Jim Carrey had to get in an FBI torture specialist.
They say everybody that's done it says it's one of the most hellish fucking things they've ever done as an actor. I've never heard somebody describe being in a latex bodysuit like that as being pleasant.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on how good the pay was, you know.
Well, yes, of course.
But also, if I'm having fun with the role and it's a good movie, it's probably something I'd be willing to do. But
probably helps you.
I would definitely have to do some breathing work or something to keep myself calm while I'm fully wrapped in latex and breathing through a tube.
Yeah, I mean, but also it's like the Phantom on stage, and like Glinda Glinda to lesser extent, that's just all green, but like the Phantom, he has to come in still like 2 hours early a day, and then what do you do on a matinee? But anyway, that's a whole other matter.
I mean, and God bless the makeup artists that care to go to the trouble
of
getting all that shit working.
I mean, Rick Baker is undoubtedly the MVP of this film. Well, no, I mean it's John Landis. Well, no, it's a combination. But
I mean, John Landis has an amazing vision here, but I'm guessing Rick Baker was the one on the effects.
Yeah.
You were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that vision wouldn't have come together without the stuff that Rick Baker did. Because
Oh, yeah.
much of what makes this movie work is the visceral practical effects.
Is the fact that it doesn't look like shit, and
Yeah.
it is very believable. The two biggest things with the transformation, and they managed to pull one of them off, and they didn't manage to pull the other off. But the two biggest things with the transformation were he wanted it all in one shot, which obviously, of course, became quickly too difficult. And he wanted it in broad daylight. Well, not broad daylight, but he wanted it in just a blankly lit. And Rick Baker was like, ah, shit. And then also, Rick Baker also talks about how there was no big dramatic horror score to help as well. And Elmer Bernstein, who wrote a little bit of music for this, some great little musical cues, wanted to write a big Metamorphosis theme, but wasn't allowed. He said, no, I'm sorry, we're using Sam Cooke's Blue Moon. And this beautiful song is playing, and you're seeing some of the most horrific. Well, this is the big thing with the film and the script, is that in those original Wolfman movies, Lon Chaney goes, oh, and then he sits in a chair, and then it's just like fade on the legs, fade on the legs. And John Landis was saying, if your entire body is changing and you're becoming a dog, a big wolf,
horribly painful.
It would be the most painful thing you have ever experienced. And that's where one of my changes lies, but we'll talk about that soon. But they pull it off. I mean, for me, it's the up the spine, the cricking of the bone, and the sound effects as well. It's wonderful.
The performance. I mean, the screaming and
phenomenal. Yeah,
just yelling for help, and oh my god. I mean, it was just perfectly delivered and just really hard to watch in a way.
Well, is Rada darling David Norton, or is he Rada, or is he Lambda? He was.
I couldn't tell you.
He was one of those.
He the assignment, that's for sure.
Yes, Lambda. He was Lambda. Very, very. Oh, and obviously Jenny Agutter of Equus fame. She was in Equus. She was in the original cast for Equus, that classic play. Well, let's talk about this then. Best 10-minute stretch. I've kicked us off with the slaughtered lamb. And that also including ignoring the howling once they've left, and just everybody stoically looking off. So let's talk about the slaughtered lamb whilst we're here.
I mean, I was going to say that was the first thing that came to mind for my 10-minute sequence.
I think it's the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people. It's just an excellent sequence. Let's talk about some of the actors here. So we have Rick Mayall, we have Brian Glover, we have David Schofield, and we have Lila Kay, who I was like, who is that woman? Well, no, I had the opposite, because I've been rewatching Cheers, and there is an episode where they get in a British barmaid, and she's like the perfect barmaid. I was like, I know her. And she's the American Werewolf in London, bar lady. And, do you have any food? No.
She's perfect. Yeah, I couldn't tell you who a single one of those actors was, but I thought they all did a fantastic job. It's like you said, I mean, it's just a fantastic sequence, and it so perfectly kind of establishes, I think, the atmosphere that the movie is going for.
Feels real. It fundamentally feels real.
It feels like this is something that could happen. Like, you show up in a town, and a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere with creepy moors all around it, and the locals just, they make a point of being kind of, sending you off to your death unbeknownst to you.
Yeah. The intentionally loud racist joke, and remember the Alamo, and the loud heckling, they're just screaming, and whether it's vaguely performative to make these Americans feel more uncomfortable, it's
more like they don't belong.
It's and I mean, that leads to one of my specific favorite parts, where they're all laughing and laughing and laughing. Hey, what's that star for?
And it's all just dead quiet.
Immediate cut to Dart missing, and then David Schofield comes. You made me miss. I haven't missed that damn one. Now, do you want to know a real Yorkshire Mandela effect?
Oh yes, let's hear it.
Is that up north? So we quote the slaughtered lamb stuff all the time, but everybody always says, I haven't missed that dartboard in 10 years. Now, I don't know if that's just my circles, but that's what we always say. But yeah, just a great Griffin Dunn humor. That.
I mean, it just sounds it just sounds good. It's just a nice sounding line in that accent, isn't it?
And the other one, which I've already quoted, that's enough. Later on, when Brian Glover just screams,
just appears in the rain. I love the sharp cuts to people that are already fully arrived at a location. No, like walking up, no seeing them approach. Just like they're there, they're not. They're there, they're not. It really, I think effects like that are kind of part of what makes the sort of rapid attacks of the wolf work as well, as we've already got this sort of weird energy established where normally you get like a shot to show like somebody approaching a conversation, so we get like a reference that they're coming, and instead we get this kind of unsettling effect of where someone is suddenly there and involved in the room, and then suddenly they're not. We don't get to see them approach and leave. They're just there and not there.
No, yeah, it's deeply, deeply frightening. Then I have the first Jack in the hospital scene, which we've already talked about, where we sort of outline that Jack could be a manifestation of his own guilt and darkness and shame, but they are just real ghosts, and we are in a supernatural world, and they are those dead by a werewolf and have died an unnatural death will walk this world in limbo until the werewolf's line. And it's just a great conceit. And obviously, as it goes on, we get the incredible porno theatre sequence with all the dead after his night out in London.
Yeah, that was going to be my second choice of best 10-minute sequence, was chatting with all of his victims there.
Again! Pills. No, don't. And I love that Griffin Dunn still cares. Oh no, you don't want to hang yourself. If it goes wrong, you could die slowly. I don't care. And and all these people. I mean, obviously the big standout is Mr. Tube. Your carnivorous lunar activities. I am not your friend.
I love that we get the undead and the sort of supernatural element of the werewolf and the pentagram on the wall, and it's very like much established, like the rules that you think apply don't apply in this world necessarily. But when first told to kill himself, he's sort of like, well, wouldn't I need like a silver bullet or something? He's like, come on, be real.
Oh, don't be ridiculous, David. And says puppet Griffin Dunn. He's like, oh, don't be ridiculous, David. And it's just darkly comic and darkly humorous. It's as equally humorous as it is tragic. I mean, he has his first werewolf night out, and then the morning after he doesn't remember a thing, and he feels like he's on the top of the world. His blood feels great, and as you clearly would. It's like those rom-com montages the morning after the first great sex. That's what it always feels like. He's running around the streets. I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it. And he finally meets Jenny Agutter, and he's like, oh my God. And then we get into the car with Bricktop from Snatch, and he's like, oh no, mate. Have you heard about it? It's like Jack the Ripper all over again.
Makes you think of Jack Ripper, don't it?
I was like, hell. Have you seen Snatch?
No, I've not.
Snatch is fucking great, David. Thanks for the caravan. Snatch is
Next
great.
Podcast.
I fucking love Snatch. Brad Pitt, Jason Statham. Brad Pitt playing an Irish guy with a thick accent, and he pulls it off. It's very good.
Does it?
Yeah, incredibly.
When was this?
This is 2000.
Oh,
It's
yeah, you could throw anybody up there with any sort of accent, and people would have just rolled with it.
It's Guy Ritchie, hot off Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and soon to be cold off Revolver. And then he makes Sherlock Holmes. I like the Sherlock Holmes movies. I like the Downey Jr.
I like them. They're some of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I like those. They're good movies. Next, second Jack in the Night, when he's green. And this is when it gets a bit more unsettling. The first time he's a lot more jovial. But this time he goes, "You need to listen to me, David." Okay.
Well, the point blank over and over again, you need to kill yourself. I mean, it just is maddening, because from David's point of view, it could just be like his schizophrenia or something acting up and telling him to kill himself. You can totally. It's really visceral and just frank. Like, you need to kill yourself, David. Take your own life. It's just like, oh my God, how would you deal with that morally?
And it's the typical, hubris and all these things. You never listen to the warning. It's only when the warning comes true and you do kill 6 people brutally that you go, "Oh, I should have listened to the warning. I really should have killed myself." It's like, "We told you so." I mean, they don't say that. But it is.
The attitude feels very much.
Oh, yeah.
That.
Apart from the lovely couple who just stay jolly in the afterlife.
Nice. They're just nice, even though they've died. Which I'd like to think we can all be that way.
Hello.
Hello. A gun.
A gun. And it is kind of those British stereotypes. But also, I think, because you were saying this a couple of times in while you were watching it, this feels like, you said whatever American company made this. This is all a British crew. It's John Landis's script. I've always felt that it has felt wonderfully realistic. And that's what makes all the outsider stuff pay off so well. I think it's a really good portrayal, of a Yorkshire small village town. That is really not that far-fetched.
I felt very stupid making that comment, like, almost immediately after, because I was like, no, wait a second. There's no way that this was...
It's just a 1981 London that we haven't known in some time. It's like the punks on the train. I think, I can't remember whether it was you. I can't remember. But you were like...
Billy asked, do people actually dress like that?
And it was like, yeah, in 1981, yeah, they did all dress like that.
I miss I wish I could have lived through the era for American backpackers to just show up and bum their way through Europe.
I was gonna say, yeah. Would you wear that parka though?
No. Not if I knew I was going to be eaten by a werewolf, at least.
Well, that's another, it's the great tragedy. They're talking about Rome. We're going to go to Rome next.
They had plans. They were people. There's families that have been notified and all sorts of things.
Well, Landis says this over and over again in the interviews. I find this when I, like for these shows, I do all the deep dives and I watch all the behind the scenes and all the supplemental material. And it's weird because I'll watch the 70s interviews, then I'll watch the 90s interviews, and then I'll watch the 2010s interviews of those that are still alive. And there are certain anecdotes and stories that people just stick with. And he always says, this isn't a subtle movie. The first time we see them, they are in with the sheep. They are going to die. This isn't a subtle movie. He always says that. And he always talks about working on the movie Kelly's Heroes as a gopher. Imagine working as a gopher on the set of Caddyshack and then having to say to people, what was your last job? I was the gopher on Caddyshack. It's like, you were the gopher? No, I was a gopher on Caddyshack. There was 2 of them. No. I was the gopher, but I was like, you were the gopher in Caddyshack? That's a great gag, and I don't know where to put it. I'll find a place.
This is the spot for it.
Yeah, this is the last time. I'm going to write it down anyway, but because everything makes its way into everything. But what was I going to say? Oh yes, and he saw a Romany gypsy funeral, and he couldn't remember, but it was a guy and he'd committed a rape or a murder. It was some heinous crime, and they buried him upside down with garlic and his feet wrapped, and then they asked, and they were like, "It's so he doesn't come back," and that stuck with him. That was 1960. He says, this was 1969, and we were putting people on the moon, and there were still people who were, believing in the undead. And I thought, now's the time to make the Wolfman, but now. And obviously, 1969 becomes 1981 because he's some gopher, and then he ends up with the right crowd, makes Animal House big. It can't be underestimated how huge a hit Animal House was in that time. I mean, politically correct and all that. People can have a swell old time watching Animal House. I'm sure they'd love it. But and I'm sure we'll do some podcast where I bring on a couple of guests and we all awkwardly say, I don't know if it's my favorite part, but this is a joke that's in it. And everybody secretly wants to say, I really found this funny, but they can't.
Go through and ping all the things that are problematic.
Yeah. I'll just do a big beep sound effect every couple of times. But the gopher, Caddyshack. There we go. That note's been made. So then he was thinking, and then Animal House, then Blues Brothers, yeah. So he makes Animal House and Blues Brothers, and by that time he has enough money. He has a fair bit of money. A Kentucky Fried Movie as well with the Zucker brothers. Yes,
I vaguely recognize that.
It's like the Zuckers, the airplane people, and Naked Gun. So their first outing was like based off their sketches from their Kentucky Fried Theatre Company, I think they called it. Anyway, it was like in Milwaukee, and they had like this sketch group, and then those sketches became sketches in the film. I've got it on Blu-ray. We can watch it whenever. It's a fun old romp. There's a lovely advert, and it goes, "We have pissed in your popcorn," which I enjoy. I enjoy it all. That's fun. But those are three movies that make a tremendous amount of money, and at that point, he can bring back out this old script, which he still wants to make, and he makes it with John Peters is interested, and it's that classic story. And by happenstance, it was a bit of a hit. It was a hit, which led to I was going to say he's got quite the roster of whether they were immediately successful or not. A lot of them are cult classics now. It's one of those things. The John Landis career and life is marred by the Twilight Zone incident, which is one of those tragedies. Sorry, my Pepsi was overflowing. I don't think on the court transcripts that ever occurred. This is a terrible, terrible tragedy of film communication. Sorry, my Pepsi's overflowing. I don't think when Spielberg commented on it, he ever had to suck off some froth. But it's one of those terrible tragedies, and it's a lot of people's faults. However, on a production, there are a lot of nameless people to the general public, and John Landis is a name. Now that sounds like some serious fan bullshit, and sounds like some serious undermining of three tragic deaths. But I think there is a little bit of truth in that. However,
when you're in charge of anything, the things that happen end up falling on your head, essentially, in a way.
I just want to say, David doesn't know the full details of the tragedy and did not intentionally try to make that joke. But it's.
Oh my God.
I just want to save David on that one. It's staying in because it was a pretty funny dangly comic joke, perfect for the show. But David didn't know the tragedy surrounding Big Morrow. but yes, but then it immediately does kind of bounce back. Coming to America, Eddie Murphy comes to him, and there's this whole troubled history and like brawl between him and Eddie Murphy, because for lack of Eddie Murphy was a bit of a kid. I mean, he was the biggest 19-year-old in the world, but he was a kid when they made Trading Places. And John Landis was this big, talented director giving him his break. And now Coming to America happened. I mean, whenever we do Coming to America, another film I love, the royal penis is clean. But whenever we do Coming to America, I'll get the Eddie Murphy quote, and he was like, that guy was fucked up. He was treating me like a kid. I helped him out after all that Twilight Zone bullshit. So there was the trajectory of Landis is a bizarre and tragic one. He comes back, makes Coming to America, Spies Like Us, Three Amigos is after. All again movies I deeply love. And then most recently made Burke and Hare. Fine little film with Simon Pegg and Andy Serkis. Lovely little British. It sort of came and went. It wasn't a huge success, and it's not that great, but it is just nice. It's nice for the career to not end on Blues Brothers 2000. I think is the big saving grace for this. But this is. I mean, it's real auteur stuff. It's like this is those one in a million ideas. Only one person has this idea, and you can feel they
just kept working out.
Yeah, you can feel the script, and it's it's one of those things. You can feel that this is a John Landis script, whereas he's an excellent director of other people's scripts, as is the case with Blues Brothers, of course, and Three Amigos, written by Steve Martin, Lorne Michaels, and Randy Newman. The real Three Amigos, my three of my favorite people. But but this is one of those movies where he is just playing, just a great script, great written and directed by movie, where it feels completely Landis, with Rick Baker giving all of his creative amazement to pay it off, to make it real.
And he manages to not get in his own way.
Yeah, I have then my next 10-minute stretch. I have Woodvine Up North, which should be its own show, where he's just playing completely coy Dr. Woodvine, and he's just like, oh, I did a terrible thing about those American boys. You go, oh, okay. Yeah, nice try, John. And they immediately see through him.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. And they immediately see through him and his bullshit and cut him down to size. Then we have the transformation / first night, the couple, the dinner party, the homeless people, and then the tube incident. Arguably one of the most startling, still shocking, still effective 10-minute stretches in all of horror. This was the first time you'd ever seen it, David, beyond flashes of the what do you call it?
The makeup.
Of the makeup. What did it pay off?
I would say so. Yeah, I think it was, like so much else, like we've already been kind of saying a lot, about a lot of the movie. I think it's just all very well delivered, and it really holds up. The scene from the tube, especially, it sticks with me. As the guy is kind of sprawled out at the top of the escalator, sort of stuck, and you just see at the very bottom down, coming out of the tunnel is the wolf. Scene's over. You don't even need to see what comes next to know.
It's that Jaws stuff that you're talking about, of the little things.
You just see the wolf and its fucking gnarly face come into frame down there, and you hear a little bit of a gasp, and then the scene moves on, and he's waking up at the zoo.
And then we're immediately into light comedy.
Immediately, it's like the comedy of having to climb out of a wolf enclosure.
Like, we're into just naked frivolities, and he's wearing a lady's jacket, and it's all that sort of just like British slapstick humor then.
it was a dramatic tone shift, but it really worked. Like you didn't feel like it was out of place.
Yeah. And then my final 10-minute stretch, we've already talked about the porno theatre, is the Piccadilly Circus final attacks, which is where most of the budget went, obviously. They filmed for 2 nights between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Basically, Blues Brothers is filled with car crashes on the streets of Chicago. And John Landis, multiple times on these commentaries and interviews, people are like, he's like the greatest salesman I've ever met. And he would say to all these, Barbies, he always says Barbies. He's like, I'd talk to the Barbies and I'd say, call up the Odeon. The Blues Brothers is playing down the street. You can have free tickets. Call up Chicago PD and ask them about the good stuff we did on the streets. We're good. You can trust us. And then he managed to get 4 hours. And it's incredible to me that stuff, all of that stuff was shot in 4 hours. The amount of effects and car crashes, and that it all looks as good as does, and as long as it is, it's a long sequence.
I like to just think that John Landis just had his people driving like mad through the streets of Chicago and videotaped the carnage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Chicago.
Chicago.
Illinois.
Rough state.
Yeah, rough. Don't know what that dog was. Rough. That was you didn't take any notes, and we've already talked about your 10-minute stretches. So let's move straight into Tom's specific favorite parts, and then we'll go into our new category called Save It for the Pod. Tom's Whittle's specific favorite parts. You have lovely sheep. Always makes me laugh. I always enjoy that. Such lovely weather, bloody awful if you ask me. The fog rolling on the moors and the rain. It was so cold that all of the fake rain pipes froze, and they had to wrap hot water bottles around the water pipes because it was so cold. And the fake rain in their hair would freeze the minute that they walked out of frame, and they could crack the ice on the jackets. And the first thing I think of is old naked Yorkshire man lying in there, going, you were in a puffer jacket and complaining how cold it was. Think about young.
Think about the 60-year-old man that had to lie naked upon the grass.
Who probably did some Shakespeare, and he was like, "You want me to do what?"
What's my motivation? You've just been shot in the side.
Now, up until the first werewolf attack, it's just a straight comedy. We don't have to balance tone up until that point. And I love that even before the first attack on Jack, we have 2 just slapstick, stay away from the moors, beware the moon, oops. That oops is pretty funny. And it's like, ha, ha, ha. And then the mudslide. And he's like, are you going to help me up, shithead? And then that Jesus Christ.
Oh no, that whole image of them walking with the howl. I mean, that whoever did the howling effect, that howl was really good because it's bone chilling, and them just being out and so utterly vulnerable.
He's circling us. And again, it's that Jaws thing you're talking of. He's circling us. It's the camera movements. We barely see the wolf for such a long time, and then of course it pays off. And then one day in my life, I hope I have a partner who knows how much I love an American Werewolf in London, and I'm asleep in my bed, and then I wait, and then the curtains open. And I go, oh, what is this? And she goes, good morning, Mr. Kessler. Now, so that was one of my specific favorite parts is Jenny Agutter saying, Mr. Kessler. Now, one of the documentaries on the DVD is by a production company called Kessler Boy, which I found very fun as well. Where is the Kessler Boy, Miss Lane? Then I have Frank Oz saying hi. Hi. Frank Oz as an ignorant American. Hi. kids these days. Frankel's actually has 2 credits in this movie. Do you remember what the other one would be for?
No.
When we see the Muppets on the TV screen.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, Mrs. Piggy and Kermit are credited in the final credits as herself and himself, which I thought was delightful.
As they should be.
Oh, Kermit! Sorry. Fucking, we could go on a big Muppet tangent. The evil face flash during the one of the in the woods, one of those. That one scared me as a kid. That was like because it's the random ones. There isn't, you know, that a wolf's going to pop out. You don't expect Nazi evil demons.
Nazi wolves and weird faces. You expect like shots of a wolf monster thing. I liked how abstract the dreams could be about kind of the awakening of the beast within.
And then obviously it has the wonderful dream in a dream, which I mean, obviously it was never the first film to do that, but I think it was one of the first times where I saw it, and again we're back to horror, and then great comedy. Holy shit! You know, that's the audience's reaction, and we can laugh and we can breathe. And I feel not in a way that like one of my biggest things with the new Halloween movies. It's just those like moments of comedy just completely undermining the horror. Like the little kid who's getting babysit in Halloween 2019. I loved him. He was hilarious. You know, my nasty ass toenails. It's hilarious. It's really funny stuff. But the minute that Michael's trying to kill his babysitter and he goes, "Oh shit," and everybody laughs, and I go, why would you want to deflate the tension?
Why would you undercut the horror? Like that was one thing, was when it was scary, it was very scary. And when it wasn't, it wasn't. Like there was always a sense of tension, and it was always being released either with, some sort of climactic horrifying attack or a laugh. But it was never like,
it'd be like if there was a joke made by the homeless people, and then we went straight to the tube attack.
Yeah.
Whereas the transformation into the dinner party couple, into the homeless people, into the tube is this horrible ratcheting. And again, there is one line which is one of my changes actually, but which undermines that a little. Anyway. Jenny Agutter's grey coat and red jumper combination. That's just a specific favourite part. The mirror gag. Again, I don't know if this is the first time I ever saw it. Well, no, I know it's the first time I ever saw it, but the flick of the mirror. Hi, David. And you go, oh God. Again, just terrifying. I love John Woodvine going to an old Yorkshire pub and ordering Campari and soda.
Campari and soda.
We don't have that. Guinness. I just small Guinness. What about those American boys, eh? You're like, come on, John.
Come on, you're not even being a little bit subtle about this.
I love in the porno. I told you never to go with him. I've never met you in my life. Oh, sorry, wrong room. And then good movie. I quote good movie a lot with people, whether they know it or not.
I love the constant cutting back to the porno film that had a plot that just really made no sense. Just
entirely about just people miscommunicating. I presume it was a Shakespearean farce. But then later on, just this buxom naked woman holding up a phone. Hello. Oh, sorry, wrong number. Oh, no, that's okay. See you later. Put it down. It's just hilarious stuff. And then that underscores long extended sequences. And again, it's that juxtaposition and the horror. It's just one of those things where you're amazed that they pulled it off, but they bloody well pulled it off. And yeah, no, that's of course why this movie is as so successful as it very much is. Do I have any other weirdly specific favorite parts? I think I do. Yes, I do. Nobody here. Oh, yeah. Oh, the one I just mentioned. There's nobody here by that name. And then the werewolf jumped straight in. The little eyes flittering. David, I know you're in there. David, I know you're in there. And we see the eyes flitter for just a moment.
We get the dramatic question of, is he? Nope.
Nope, big jump. And again, just lovely, lovely filmmaking. David, your little tiny, weirdly specific favorite parts. This is with the credit that you weren't able to take any notes.
Well, I will say one thing I really liked was the shots of the crowd around the front of the porno theater after the police officers come running back out like, Jesus is a monster, and we pull the sort of metal shutter down. We get that great shot of like 10 police officers all throwing their body against this thing, trying to keep it shut, which I thought was just a really good shot. Yeah, a lot of this stuff in Piccadilly was just really looked cool, and like the images of the police officers running through the alleyway. It was a lot of neat stuff there. But yeah, I think you mostly hit on most of mine. I mean, weirdly specific cool parts are just like the stretching of the face, I would say, and the hands. All the transformation stuff is just really impressive to see. So pretty much the same as you, I'd say.
I want to talk about best single. Do I want to talk about best single minute? Yeah, I do. I want to talk about soundtrack corner, and then we'll do best single minute. So soundtrack corner again.
Great soundtrack.
Just a pop soundtrack. 3 uses of Blue Moon, Bobby Vinton, Sam Cooke, and the Marcells at the end. Then we have Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater Revival. They wanted to open with Moonshadow by Cat Stevens, but Cat Stevens was firmly against it then because of religious reasons. And then they went to Bob Dylan for his version of Blue Moon, but Bob Dylan was born again at this time, so he firmly was against it. It's in an R-rated movie.
Amazing what one pentagram will do.
Yeah, I was going to say, your movie's about werewolves. I'm not putting my...
There's nothing really, I would say, sacrilegious about the movie in the first place, really. They don't really go after religion.
Well, it's the famous story of like Joel Schumacher scouting locations for St. Elmo's Fire. Obviously a movie about promiscuous teens. And he's looking for a church. And he goes to the church in Georgetown. And they say, no, you can't use it. And Joel Schumacher said, you use this church in The Exorcist. And then the priest said, the devil didn't win in The Exorcist. It's one of those stories. It's like the werewolf dies.
Didn't win in The Exorcist. I mean, yeah, I was going to say the devil seems to very much win.
No, he doesn't. You have a terrible reading of that movie. He throws him out the window.
Both priests die. The 2 people that were
take me.
They win a Pyrrhic victory, sure. The little girl's not possessed anymore, but both of them die in the attempt. He's fully overwhelmed by the power of Satan and throws himself out a window.
But David is perfectly all right. She doesn't remember anything. She says not. Okay, and they drive away. She says she doesn't remember anything. All right, okay then. She doesn't remember anything. One of my favorite little lines in The Exorcist. Do you have a favorite use of Blue Moon in this? Is it the transformation? Is it the opening Visit Yorkshire tourist video, or is it bomb ba bomb dang 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 ding ding ding?
Yeah, it's great. It's so well placed. I mean, because it just really shifts the tone so dramatically. I mean, if they had just cut to like silent credits or something else there, it wouldn't have that change wouldn't have been so abrupt.
Yeah, again, as a child, I thought that's the stupidest ending to an excellent film I've ever seen. And now it's one of my favorite endings, kind of full stop.
I'd say my favorite musical moment was definitely Bad Moon Rising, and it might just be because
Yeah.
I fucking loved that song, but I also loved where they put it in the movie of, he's in London and we know he's going to be transforming again tonight.
Now,
He's going to be doing his transformation.
David, I actually gave you false information about one of our other favorite songs, Werewolves of London.
Was it?
I told you that it came out after, and so they couldn't use it, but that was bullshit. They could use it, but they just didn't. And Griffin Dunn and David Norton kept saying to John Landis, why aren't you using the Warren Zevon song? Now, we both love that song. I think John Landis has never said why he didn't use it. It may have just been money. I think that one maybe is too on the nose.
That one, I mean, none of their songs spelled out werewolf. They were all something to do with the moon. So yes, I think American Werewolf in London.
Oh, wait a minute. This leads us
London.
perfectly into Single Minute because I've forgotten one of the moons. Moon Dance by Van Morrison, underscoring one of the most erotic love scenes. Just a soft shower.
They pulled no punches with the sex scene.
I think, right, I'm going to defend it. Actually, yeah, why not? Because
not that it's a bad thing, but
yeah, because I think we need, for lack of a better way to say it, we need to show that they've had good sex for us to believe that they're immediately drawn to each other.
I guess that for me was the weakest part of the movie, was the attraction between the nurse and the mentally unstable mugging victim.
Mugging? Killing?
As far as she knew, she had been fed, as far as she knew, this was a guy who had been mugged in Northern England, watched his best friend die, and now thinks that his friend is visiting him and telling him to kill himself. And her first instinct is, I should bring him back to my house and have sex with him.
Because she's worried. I can't even defend it. I can't.
She's so worried about him that she leaves him completely alone for an entire day in her house.
Right.
While she goes to work.
I can't defend it from a nurse's point of view. I can defend it from a chemistry point of view, and I think that they do actually have great chemistry. And also, I think they have good chemistry, and I think it comes from her, not in a way where it feels like Landis fulfilling out some hot nurse fantasy. She feels like a believable character. Jenny.
She feels like a believable character, but I mean, good God, their entire first interactions were like just so very much a sexy nurse fantasy being played.
Oh yeah, Mr. Kessler. But Jenny Agutter.
Have to feed you then, and she sits on, like, she's definitely a dom in her.
Well, yes. Please, David. I let's not get me too erotically charged for what's the change. But no, Jenny Agutter in this is a huge crush. Obviously, I mean, who wouldn't? This any straight person or lesbian, anybody attracted to women is going to find Jenny Agutter attractive. And I think in all of her interviews, she's saying like, it was just a really interesting script with great characters, and it was a really fun, believable character. So she's like, it's not one of those things where like 40 years later she's saying like, no, it's, I was just there.
No, I think for the movie it worked. We weren't necessarily going for, strict like there's fucking werewolves and dead people. Like, we're obviously not going for dead realism.
And also, she's this classically trained actress. And you can clearly see it because she's the reason this ending lands. David lying naked, brutally shot, is a stark image. But if Jenny Agutter performing, David, I love you, and then crying as she does, isn't as beautifully acted as it is, then the film doesn't land. And she's fucking incredible in that final scene. So that pays off exponentially. You said during watching it, you said she's an odd one, which I guess is pretty true.
She's an odd one.
Other best single minutes. We talked about the Yorkshire Blue Moon montage. We talked about the POV Wood Vision. We talked about the no. Well, no, we haven't talked about the no kid. The kid who just keeps saying no. Who I've put here can't be a real actor. Maybe he is, but I have here the Boredom Bad Moon Rising montage. Yeah, Bad Moon Rising is a great song, but it just perfectly shows the boredom of a day. And also, I think specifically the boredom of being in somebody else's house. And it's like, I'm not going to really be fully comfortable. All I can really do is maybe read a book. They've said I can watch the TV. They said there is stuff in the fridge, but I'm not going to eat the good stuff. Yeah. So it's like, no, I'm going to maybe have a slice of toast. That's not pushing it too far. I'll have a cup of tea because you're British and I'll watch the TV. But I love the boredom montage of it all. The Nazi mutants, which I think also as a kid, I just like, I heard and understood what a Jew was, but it was like the mutants being Nazis and tearing apart your Jewish family as the worst horrific nightmare possible. That just never sat with me as a kid. I just thought it was this cool scene, but obviously that is a horribly distorted and viscerally terrifying version of course, a classic
of what's happening to him. Yeah. Well, it's also, I think, indicative. All the dreams feel like they're supposed to be indicative, sort of like what's happening within him, which is like this sort of, awakening of this visceral, animalistic, just pure aggression. And for him, I think, the thing that manifests as is demon, Nazi, wolf things.
Yeah, just clearly a very mellow guy without really a violent bone in his body. And then suddenly he's going to be turned into a killing monster without him even realizing or remembering. And then there you go.
She doesn't remember anything.
She doesn't remember anything. And then probably my favorite single minute in the entire film is when he calls home and you expect it to be this big melodramatic scene. I love you, Mum. I'm so sorry. And it's his younger sister. And his family aren't even there because of the time zones. And he just has to keep saying to his sister, no, you really have to say to Mum and Dad that I love them and I love you too. No, I'm not kidding. And it's just this little chat. You don't hear her at all. And David Norton.
It's heartbreaking. Beautiful
performance from David Norton, this one-sided phone call. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful scene in the middle of this, in the middle of this horror, in the middle of this comedy. And it's a lot of, and again, it's that awkwardness. It is not darkly comic in this situation, but it's ironic. It's darkly, just one of those twists, one of those horrible twists of fate. This is the only time he can make this call. And it's at that point that he gets the blade and he tries to kill himself, but he just can't. Because again, it's not in his being. And then Jack at the porno theater calls him over.
There's still that little whisper of doubt, I think, in the back of his
mind.
As for all I know, there's some completely other murderer running around the streets, killing these people, and I'm just going crazy.
And I'm going to kill myself, and that's it. Yeah.
You feel that conflict in him all the way up to the very end.
Yeah. Which leads us on to. Let's do best line. Here's a couple I've got noted down. If I can get them up, I can get them up. Yeah, here we go.
You made me miss.
You made me miss. Beware the moon, lads. Beware the moon. Stay on the moors. No, stay off the moors.
Stay off the moors.
Yeah, stick to the road. The undead surround me. Have you ever talked to a corpse? It's boring. I'm lonely. That's very funny. A gun is good. You just put the gun to your forehead and pull the trigger. If you put it in your mouth, then you'd be sure not to miss. Thank you. You're also very thoughtful. What else do I have here?
Lunar activities.
Your carnivorous lunar activities. And also have here talking to the no kid. Benjamin, have you ever been severely beaten about the face and the neck? This is like saying this to a small child. I love you, David. Poor David. Yes. So then that leads us on to our new save it for the pod. Which will then lead into my changes, because most of these are changes. We've touched on your issues with the Jenny Agutter relationships. John Woodvine's trip to Yorkshire. You didn't believe that this doctor would care so much and drive all the way up there.
What doctor has the time to take out? He's clearly the head of like an entire wing of the hospital. He's just got the time to take off to Yorkshire, drive.
A 4-hour, an 8-hour round trip journey.
To check in on one schizophrenic mugging victim's police story.
But thank God he did. Because
Thank God he did.
Well, no. He didn't stop anything.
It ultimately has no effect.
all it proves is that the only thing he does is get Jenny Agutter there to see a man she loves brutally die.
A man she loves gets shot down like a dog.
and be a dog. Then the evil kids with the barking dogs. You just said fuck off. You just said that. You were vaguely worried about the pedophile joke. Come over here. When he's naked in the zoo and he's trying to get the kids' balloons.
And he's waving. Well, you know what it made me think of was like, is this? It made me think of. Did you see Bad Grandpa with?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, did Bad Grandpa do a fucking homage?
I want to find all the behind the scenes interviews for Dirty Grandpa, and to find the director going, well, I just wanted to go to the, I had a lot of Landis when I was watching. I was watching a lot of Landis when I was making this movie. Boonwell was big for me, and I wanted a bit of. When we were shooting some of the slapstick sequences, Jacques Tati was a big influence, and there was a moment where I wanted perfect symmetry, and I was thinking a bit of Wes Anderson, but you can see all this in the movie. I don't know why I'm saying this.
It's evident. Sorry, it's Dirty Grandpa, not Bad Grandpa.
Bad Grandpa is Jackass Presents. Yes. Yeah, David. By the time this episode comes out, we will have watched a new Jackass movie.
I know, and probably the last one if we're being
probably, yeah.
Steve-O's getting a little old to put himself through this shit.
Yeah. Is this going to be? It's definitely going to be mine. Is this going to be your first Jackass in a cinema as well?
I can't remember if I made it. I don't know if I was able to get in to see Jackass 3D in the cinema. So yeah,
that's going to be an opening night. We're going to sort out our shifts or whatever.
To see that. Yeah,
we're opening night, Bexley Heath.
Jackass movie. The last.
I'm going to bring banners. However, for me, the pedophile joke really works because the kid's so smart. He's like, I'm going to give you £1 for those balloons. Who are you? I'm the balloon thief. And he goes, why would a thief want to give me money? which I've seen this film a million times. I forgot that line and I laughed out loud.
That kid's gonna grow up to be prime minister.
And then no, the guy no, he's too smart. Whoa, we get political. Whoa. And then obviously it leads to the iconic line, a naked American man stole my balloons. And then your final issue was when he's trying to get arrested and he does the whole, Prince Charles and, the Queen is a man and does that whole thing. And you said, just punch the cop.
Punch the cop. If you're this desperate to get arrested, just punch him and he'll arrest you.
But again, I think it's that thing that you're talking about of like, he's not sure. If he just says that the Queen is a man, then maybe getting arrested, then, and he's not a werewolf, then he can get away with just making a nuisance. Punching a cop is an actual, I was going to say it's a felony. It's not a felony at all.
Okay,
but it's
well then whip your dick out and piss on a fountain or something. I mean, like
that's public exposure. Yeah. I mean, he's already run naked through a zoo.
He's already running naked from the zoo. He was stealing people's clothes off of clotheslines. Come on.
Yeah, he's already a dirty criminal.
You're already in some shit,
Which leads me to my changes. I don't like the line, I didn't mean to call you a meatloaf, Jack. I think the entire in the middle of the transformation, I think the rest of the film balances its comedy and its horror so well that
was the
line,
moment
yeah,
just didn't land right.
that line coming in the middle of the transformation just feels like a bit of a dud and undermines it a little. How did the big evil dog get out of the house?
Without, I love the image of like this giant
Just-
monster dog just walking up and gently
It's just like,
turning the key,
it was just like one of those
closing
things.
the door behind him.
I was like, wait a minute, how did it get out of this house? There's no like broken window.
He closes the window when he climbs, or does he ever close the window that he climbs back in when he locks himself out?
This isn't some slinking like little cat. It can slink in and
Yeah,
out
it's a
of.
giant devilish
Yeah.
hound. But you know, if there's a big open window, it was a.
I
don't
could.
remember if he shuts that window. Or
There
not.
needs to be a broken window, and Jenny Agate going, "Who broke my window?" You know, it's something like that.
Well, notably in the Universal Haunted House, they had many instances of the wolf popping out through a hole in the wall. So they did their best to correct that glaring issue.
Indeed, and also 2 full moons, night after night.
Yeah.
How does
I
that
was
work?
gonna say, I thought the moon wasn't full 2 nights in a row. That's my only thought.
I can't remember at this very moment whether there's a throwaway line, but I can't think of it. Yeah, it's one of those things.
It reminds me of this has absolutely nothing to do with An American Werewolf in London.
Go for it.
I don't know if you've seen the new Jumanji movie.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
It's awful, but I love it. The whole ending, right? The time pressure to like get one of the flowers before the moon sets.
Oh yeah.
Just wait 2 weeks. The moon's gonna come up again. I didn't get the time pressure of like we have to get one before the moon sets. I'm like, it's gonna be back. The moon will be full again. Anyway.
Yeah, I think. Like, I mean, you'd be adding another half an hour to the film, but I think there is a version of this where like there's another 30 days, and he really falls in love with the nurse, and
That was one thing. I guess my change would be give that. I mean, yeah, without adding time onto the film, they couldn't really do it. But you know, just more time to flesh out the relationship between him. Because for me, like it landed well enough at the end.
oh yeah,
But
Yeah.
I didn't really believe that she would be tragically torn up over this. It was.
I think "I Love You" is a bad choice.
Yeah, I was like, well, you've had sex one time and you've spent what, a couple weeks together.
I think it works because Jenny Agutter is such an excellent actress, but I do think "I Love You" sort of lands weirdly.
I mean, you know, the performances sell it. I just didn't really buy that enough time had passed for them to really be at that point.
No, I think it's a very, very solid thing. Tom's big question, is this the best directed Landis film? I think so. I think when it comes to direction, I think it's his most well-made movie. I think I may point... I may point to Trading Places or Coming to America when it comes to personal favorites, but this is in the top 3.
Yeah, Coming to America has quite a lot of good stuff. Just I don't know. I couldn't say. I think this movie is remarkably effective. You know, like there's no fat to this movie. You know,
Oh no,
there's
this
nothing-
is my biggest thing going against Another 30 Days is that this movie moves at a clip and has no, like, what? We had 4 changes and none of them were lose this scene or whatever, not like it.
Yeah, no, everything that's there needed to be there and builds on it in some way. You know, so I mean, that's pretty hard to top.
I love that the Muppets scene that they choose is Kermit saying violence belongs with puppetry. I don't like That feels
Well,
far
and
too
then-
specific. I don't know what the point is, but well, no, I do know what the point is.
I mean, they do have a giant puppeted animatronic wolf at, committing brutal acts of violence.
Killing
So
incredible
I guess
violence,
you
yeah.
you could say that, maybe they just took it all from the Muppets.
Maybe he was watching the Muppets and got the idea.
It's like, what would be great is if Kermit ripped people's fucking throats off.
So I think we can't be underestimated that this leads to one of the biggest this film leads to one of the most influential pieces of art ever. Thriller. Michael Jackson watches this movie and goes, I want that to be my video, man. And so he gets John Landis to direct it, and he gets Rick Baker to do the effects.
Dressing up like Green Jack.
Yeah. And have we ever watched Thriller together, David?
We've never watched the Thriller music video together. I think you did attempt to put it on one time for Sinead and Henrietta, and they shot you down.
It's like, no. Is Rian still in the room?
Rian, are you still in the room? Yes.
Can Rian make a quick guest appearance? Because Rian undoubtedly will have been in multiple rooms, will have been in parties and the like. Rian,
You want to make a quick?
Hold on. Have you ever watched the Thriller music video with Tom?
Yes, I have.
yes, I do this. This is my biggest party favor, isn't it? I always, oh my God, it's
I
West Side
do it.
Story's own. It's
Crossover.
45 years old. Dave, I don't know if David's told you, but 45 years is on Netflix, and it's a wonderful way to spend an evening. But
I can't wait for the viewers to flock to this channel immediately.
Oh yeah, no. The film 45 years.
No, I know, but once they watch it on Netflix, they'll see if there's any reviews of it.
Well, they will in a year and a half. You've got to do the schedule. It's the schedule. But the yeah, I watched Thriller. How great is Thriller? I love Thriller.
I actually have a video that is going to make its debut on your birthday of you dancing to Thriller and doing a wonderful Michael Jackson impression.
Oh, that's gonna go down well. Because I'm gonna say it. I'm not particularly a well-read person, and I don't read a lot of things. Why do people not like Michael Jackson?
The pedophilia.
God
I
damn it.
know. Quick Norm Macdonald joke, and then we'll move on. But he was talking about Bill Cosby, and he said that it was people said about Bill Cosby the worst part was the hypocrisy. I thought it was the rape. Just a great joke. Thank you, Rian.
That concludes my cameo. Enjoy.
Rian, have you seen American Werewolf in London?
What?
Have you seen an American Werewolf in London?
Have you
I
ever?
have not, but I can't wait to watch this.
That could be one to watch.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. What's left? See You Next Wednesday is the fake movie that makes an appearance in every John Landis movie. Here it's the porno, which I enjoy. Like in Thriller, it's the horror movie. There's a note written in blood. It says "See you next Wednesday." Do
you think he'll ever get around to actually making a See You Next Wednesday movie? Will that be his magnum opus? Maybe that'll be his last movie.
It could be. It could be. That would be fun. I'd like that. Well, there's he talks about this a lot on the interviews. Is that the porno was for like scheduling reasons? The porno was the first thing they shot, and these Americans come over with this British crew, and it's like, what the fuck are we making here? It's like,
What is this?
British people are, it's like, what the fuck? Dirty snuff film we're making with these Americans. Which brings us to, finally, a few fun facts. Where's my iPad? Director's regrets. Director John Landis has expressed regret over changing and even cutting certain sequences from the final cut of the film in order to earn an R rating. The sex scene between Alex and Davis was edited to be less explicit, and an extended scene showing the homeless less explicit. I mean,
Wow.
it's not
What
really
did they
explicit.
ha-
It's just
what
a
did
lot
they
of soft
have?
kissing.
It's fully I mean, short of just editing out.
Okay, yeah,
full-on
I'm not
cock and
expecting
balls.
penetration. Well, no, this is the thing we're going to talk about this. They had to be very careful about not showing David Norton's penis. Because obviously he's like running around the zoo and it's like so close a couple of times, but David Norton isn't circumcised. And they have the Jewish lines in here about him being circumcised. And so they were like, oh, we can't show the penis.
All this practical effects work, and they couldn't circumcised penis.
It would be bizarre if, like, in the middle of this, they just had the Boogie Nights Dirk Diggler cock. And just had, like you're walking through like the Universal horror makeup show, and it's like, this is how we made the werewolf. Now, next, we're going to show you how we achieved one of the film's most daring and most important practical effects. Do we have any volunteers in the audience?
Imagine you're getting like your costuming sheet. They're asking for like all of your personal actor bio stuff, and one of the questions is like circumcised or uncircumcised.
Yes, circumcised. The homeless men being attacked, that was a huge extended sequence. They had that, but a test audience reacted negatively to it. Another showed the undead Jack eating a piece of toast which falls out of his torn throat. Landis also concluded that the werewolf transformation scene should have been a little bit shorter. However, he was so fascinated by the quality of Rick Baker's effects that he spent as much time as he could. So
It dragged on just the slightest bit, but I didn't really think.
but again, it's just incredible to look at, isn't it?
It's just, yeah, it's worth the watch. Like, I never sat there thinking like, all right, this is getting gratuitous.
Griffin Dunn stated in 2007 that his biggest fear was that his mother, who was ill at the time, would not be able to handle seeing a film where her son appeared as a mutilated corpse. When she finally saw it, she was deeply disturbed by it. I guess you would be.
I imagine so.
Only 4 American work permits were requested. These were for Landis, David Norton, Griffin Dunn, and the first 3, and they wanted Rick Baker over as well. The first 3 work permits were granted by the British government without question, but the British Office of Actors' Equity questioned the necessity of a work permit for Dunn, claiming that there were already plenty of young American actors living in Great Britain who could portray the role of Jack. It was only when director and screenwriter Landis threatened to rewrite the script and retitle the movie An American Werewolf in Paris that the Equity Office reconsidered the application and granted Dunn his work permit. Of course, ironically, later on, the bullshit, stupid sequel, only by name, is, of course, An American Werewolf in Paris. What else we got here? John Landis had to avoid. Oh, we just talked about David Norton's circumcision, so we don't need to go into that again.
Yes.
We've talked about Cat Stevens and Yusuf. Polygram executives John Peters and Peter Gruber hoped that John Landis would cast Dan Aykroyd in the role of David and John Belushi as Jack, following, that Dan Aykroyd had been in Trading Places, and Dan Aykroyd would be in oh fucking hell, they were the Blues Brothers.
Yeah,
so stupid.
Say, how dare you not pick that one up right away, Tom?
Jake and Elwood Blues. And so obviously they thought, John Landis is making this, of course he's going to cast them. But he wanted to use new faces.
A significantly different movie.
Yeah, I cannot even imagine that. I cannot even imagine that at all.
Imagine watching John Belushi go through the transformation scene.
No. John Belushi is Jack.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Kind of.
I could see that sort of where I kind of liked that I didn't recognize either one of the people. I mean, maybe they were big names at the time.
No. They were unknowns at the time. David Norton's not really gone on to do much, and Griffin Dunn directed a bunch of movies. Addicted to Love, the terrible, weird Matthew Broderick, Meg Ryan movie, Kelly Preston. What else has Griffin Dunn been in? He's not really been in anything. He's part of one of my favorite "Oh Hello" on Broadway jokes, where they're talking about
hello.
"Oh Hello," and they're trying to think of people who live in New York, and he goes, Griffin Dunn, and he goes, Griffin Dunn doesn't live in. Griffin Dunn's not a New York actor, and he goes, the fuck did you just say? He goes, he lives in West Greenwich. He lives in da-da-da-da-da-da. You don't think that Griffin Dunn could fucking be here in 20 minutes if I called him? You dumb motherfucker. It's just very funny. But yeah, Griffin Dunn's a big theatre guy. It's one of those things. We've talked about The Elephant Man. Oh, what a lovely cane. At the close of the credits is a congratulatory message for the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer. It was included because of David getting arrested and all that stuff. The film was shot several months before the preparations for the couple's July 1981 wedding. What else? What here? We talked about the claustrophobia. I've already said all these fun facts. We've already talked about Warren Zevon. I mean, I'm useless.
What can we say? We touch on a lot of things on this podcast. Broad field.
I haven't talked about this, which is probably one of the most well-known things, is that in 1968, when John Landis wrote the script, it was a cartoon movie theatre in Piccadilly Circus, and they used to have these like cartoons.
And it would have been like children and that sort of thing in there?
It would have been a child coming up, and he would have been saying, run, to a child, which of course would have been terrifying. And it was like in the original script.
I think that could have worked just as well as a porno theater, although the chance for the absolutely hilarious porno wouldn't have.
Yeah, I think it would have been equally terrifying. I think it's that juxtaposition that's all throughout the film. They're clearly, those wacky, violent cartoons, and then cut to real violence. I mean, that's clearly what they were going for. However, by the time he got there in 1980, the cartoon theatres in London were replaced by porn theatres.
As tends to happen.
Yeah. David Norton described Jenny Agutter as a class act. I'd been a student at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, just call it LAMDA, a few years before and had a total crush on her, having seen her playing the stable girl in Equus at the Royal Court Theatre, where I'd been an usher. Both David Norton and Griffin Dunn recall telling director John Landis that the lack of silver bullets used to kill David meant he could have survived, and this could have been a franchise. The director told them no certain terms there would be no sequel. Ironically, Landis himself later considered making the sequel, An American Werewolf in Paris, but the studio passed on his ideas. I think I'm very glad he didn't, but also
I'm very glad he didn't. Yeah.
But also,
it would have been interesting to see what a John Landis American Werewolf in Paris would have been.
I think 1997. I think it would have been a good choice. A lot better than The Stupids. Did you ever watch The Stupids? That movie?
Can't say that I have.
Don't bother. And then we're like a couple of years off Blues Brothers 2000. Yeah, rough period. John Landis had a bit of communication issue on the set with the effects crew. He told them to take the head of Inspector Villers and throw it across the hood of a car. They looked at him in puzzlement. After he picked up the head and threw it himself, they replied, "Oh, you mean the bonnet?" But he says that was the only time there was any confusion.
Bonnet?
Oh yeah, you know the hood of a car?
Oh, the bonnet of a car?
They call it a bonnet, yeah.
That's a new one for me, folks.
There you go. And tagline rundown. Beware the Moon, sure. A masterpiece of terror. 20 years later, the moon rises. That was the 20th anniversary re-release. However, this has one of my favorite taglines of all time. John Landis, the director of Animal House, brings you a different kind of animal. Absolutely hilarious stuff, which I think very clearly announces that this is not going to be a comedy movie. But apparently, a lot of people just didn't get it and went in thinking it was a comedy movie. And so, for me, now that we know what the film is, that's an incredible, iconic tagline. And that's it for An American Werewolf in London. David, I can,
film.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this a movie that you'll return to now, or is this a one and done, do you think? Obviously for a while.
yeah, I think it's something I'll certainly come back to. I could give that a rewatch. For sure. I think it's definitely one to show to your friends.
Yes, it's greatly enjoyable to watch the Nazis come out and just look at their people's reactions, and also get people's reaction on Blue Moon. I mean, you like, and also I think it's one of those things of, I think, repeat. I hated the ending when I first watched it. I know you say you didn't hate it, but your reaction was like, okay then, you know.
Sorry.
And I think it kind of it warrants that reaction, obviously, of like, oh, okay. But now you know what the ending is. I think everything else leads up to it. David, it's been a distinct pleasure. An American Werewolf in London. We will see you. We'll see you on 45 years.
Yes, we will.
Well, no, we might see you on a Paul Thomas Anderson episode. What's your favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film?
You act like I know who that is.
You do. Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood, The Master.
All movies I am aware of existing, none of which I've seen. I have seen The Master. That's a lie. I have seen The Master.
Good film. Good film. Well, anyway, I'm sure you'll make your way onto one of those. And that is, as they say. Oh, somebody's just posted this. Stanley Kubrick once named his favorite actor of all time, and that actor was. What does it say? James Cagney. Okay, so David's frozen, so we're going to end there. But now we all know that. Oh, he's back! He's back!
Oh, there we go. I was going to say, very excellent taste on Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, good choice from Mr. Kubrick. And that is, as they say, that. Thank you very much, David. We will see you again soon.
Thank you, Tom.
And beware the moon. Ha ha ha. Very good.
Dabba 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 da da ba 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 ba.